Hey everyone, this is Drake from Engaging Walk. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today is May 3rd, and we're going to have a new episode for you guys today. This is a topic about transitioning to parenthood. So this is something that is near and dear to us because we are, myself and my wife, we are new parents, and our daughter just turned a little over 1 month old, not 1 year old, 1 month old. So it's all still pretty fresh for us. I know we probably got a lot of listeners that have lots of kids, plenty of kids, and that's amazing. And then maybe some people that are thinking about it. And, so this episode is for anybody out there that is looking either to hear like a perspective of someone that's going through the process. Maybe that'll give you some nostalgia, or people that are like, hey, we're thinking about, my wife and I are also thinking about having children, or we're pretty close to having children ourselves and we're working on it. And, so listening to this will give you a different perspective, or a new perspective, at least my perspective, on how things have gone in the first 5 to 6 weeks of parenthood. And so let's get into that. And but first, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have a lot of new listeners from North America, Western Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, Eastern Europe. So it's really exciting to see new people popping in, listening to the podcast, and joining the conversation about love, dating, marriage, and all things that pertain to that. So over here at Engaging Walk, for those of you guys that are new, my wife and I like to go on engaging walks together and go out and see some scenery and discuss important topics that are important to us. And not like we don't do that at home, but there's something refreshing about doing that outside and going out on a walk and taking that time to connect. And so let's dive into the content. So today we're going to be talking, like I said, about transitioning to parenthood. And so there's a couple of things that stuck out in my mind, because there's a lot of friends that I have that do have children, and a lot of them said something similar to the effect of, the moment that I saw my daughter or my son, that my whole life changed. And I know a lot of people I've talked to said that they felt like a different type of love that they never experienced before, and that love was, something that they couldn't imagine having felt. Like, even it's such a different type of love, and very profound, and very unconditional, that we have for our children. And I think that there is a lot of truth to that. But I think, at least for me, it wasn't so much of a moment that it happened, like the moment that I saw her. It was more of like a thing that just developed more and more over time, throughout, starting with the pregnancy. Because, and I'd say that actually kind of maybe starts like once you can see the infant, in the womb, through the ultrasound video. And then also, once you can hear the baby moving and seeing the baby move and feeling the baby's kicks, you start to feel a sense of like profound love for the baby. And then, of course, once you see the baby, it's, it takes on a whole different, power over you, that like, wow, this is a person that, is half me and half my wife. And, we are totally committed, whether we like it or not, to making sure that this child is taken care of. And of course we love it, because there's so much joy in taking care of the child. And I think one of the things that is really, no matter how many times people talk to you about it, it's very surprising once you're a new parent that you realize that the child really can't do anything on their own. They can't burp on their own. They can't move. They can't eat, do anything. They are totally 100% dependent on you, the mother and the father, for survival. And not just survival, but thriving, because once you get over that shock of like, okay, we have to make sure that the baby's fed every 2 hours, that the baby's sleeping, that we're holding the baby properly. Well, you could totally just start neglecting the idea of like development and making sure that the baby is stretching and having tummy time and doing all the things that the baby needs to do in order to develop, the baby's mind and muscles and movement and flexibility and all those things like that can really help the baby with, their development. And of course, you're responsible for that too. So there's so many different elements of parenthood that just come at you all at once. Being responsible for the baby's development, being responsible for everything for the baby. But then also, there's also times that you have to take time to, discuss the baby's future of like, hey, how are we going to plan for, the baby's finance? Like, how are we going to set up an account for the baby? All those things. And, those are obviously discussions that you have beforehand also, but it becomes real once the baby's there. Like, oh, we got to get the baby's birth certificate. We have to do, this type of paperwork for the baby to make sure that they get their, she gets her health insurance, that she can, get her social security card, all those little things that, that you have to take care of, and you have to do it all while the baby is still a newborn. And, of course, as everyone says, like, you're not getting a whole lot of sleep, and, it's just really difficult, and you sort of get used to this idea of like putting your needs behind the child's needs. And, but that's also a thing is a really important thing that I've been starting to realize, and my wife and too, is making sure that we're not neglecting our own needs. While as difficult as that is, with the schedule, because you're at the mercy of that baby for their schedule, that that you take the time to take care of yourself and as much as you can. As realistic as it is, I'm not really sure, but it's definitely a priority also. So it's been a really fun and interesting and an amazing journey, and just seeing how fast the baby grows week by week, and the developmental milestones, and different expressions that the baby makes, and the growth is just like, it's incredible to watch. And it's so much fun seeing everyone's joy around a newborn. We've been blessed to have a lot of family come visit us. We have family come visit us from Boston, from New York City, and from Vietnam, and they've been able to come and hang out with the child and get to know her, and obviously for her to get to know them. And that's been a really amazing experience also, to see different people interact with her. So actually, this brings me to like some advice that I would have actually, which is, there's so much literature about what is best for newborns, and different people from different parts of the world treat newborns very differently, I've come to realize. And there's a lot of different literature and a lot of different things that people do to ensure that the child, that their child is safe, healthy, happy, well taken care of, and all that. And you ultimately have to choose what is best for you and your wife, or for your spouse. If you're the wife, you and your husband have decided to do. And of course, you want to not be rigid and take in new information that is good, but you also have to research it on your own and see like, hey, is this something that is going to be safe for the baby? For example, there's a lot of discussion about, especially once you get into the hospital, they talk a lot about SIDS, and what research has shown does it contribute to it, and what prevents it, and what is safe for the baby. And so from the research that I've been able to see, and that from the hospital and from all of the literature that I've seen, is that the baby is safest to sleep on, the safest place for the baby to sleep is on their back, alone in a crib or bassinet. And you really shouldn't have too many things on in the crib with the baby or the bassinet. So for example, if like you swaddle the baby, you don't want to put like extra blankets on top of the baby, because that can lead to smothering or suffocating the baby. And then there's also the dangers of overheating, which is a major component of children having SIDS, unfortunately. So a lot of it is surrounds sleeping and and of course overheating, from what I've read. And of course, those are the two, like more specifically towards sleeping, that is like one of the two major components of like getting the baby into a routine is, the baby needs to sleep. And, especially if you have like a parent that's in your house, a grandparent rather, that's in your house, and they're like, oh, well, the baby should sleep on their side, or the baby should sleep on their stomach, and then you are like, what we've been taught, which makes sense, is that the baby should sleep on his or her back. And all the research points to that. And then, ideally your grandparents will be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Like, we did things so differently. Or like, research has, gone a long way because back then they taught us to do it this way. But it seems like this is a new way that they're, telling people to do it. And you can say like, yeah, this is the way that points to the baby sleeping the safest. And you're not always going to get that reaction. I didn't really get that reaction when I was explaining it to my mom. I know that she was like really, adamant, like, oh, the baby should really sleep on their side because they spit up, etc. But the literature also gets into like what happens if the baby does spit up, that they're especially safer on their back, because especially if their head is tilted towards one side or the other, that they're not gonna. It's less likely that it's gonna come down and suffocate them. But none of this eases the. At least for us, it didn't ease any of the anxiety or the sleepless nights of watching the baby, making sure that the baby was sleeping well, that the baby was sleeping safe. And one of the things that I think that we did that was really great is pretty difficult at sometimes, but especially if the the mother really needs that recovery time, was that we did sleeping in shifts and watching the baby in shifts. So, for example, I would watch the baby from like 11 p.m. until like 6 a.m. And then my wife would take over from like 6 a.m. till noon. And like that was my sleeping time. And then she got to sleep like a full 8 hours. And conversely, I got to sleep a full 8 hours during that like sleeping time. And then we would have our family time during the remaining 8 hours or so. And so that had like some mixed success, because obviously there's some times in the morning where you're going to have to do things like go to doctor's appointments or, things like that. I was lucky enough to have paternity leave during this time. So I was like 100% committed to, helping helping us transition to this new, era of our lives of parenthood. And one of the things that it really, is great about that is, being able to just like spend that much time with the baby. And it's at this point, I really couldn't imagine working, during this time, and how difficult that would be for my wife, because like it's difficult enough working around the baby's schedule, let alone adding things like doing dishes, laundry, cleaning, cooking, going to the market, all those sorts of things. And it really makes sense that like in Asia, they have, specifically like in China and Taiwan, I'm pretty sure in Japan and in Vietnam, they have traditions surrounding the first 30 days of recovery for the mother, that the mother's really not supposed to be doing anything other than nursing the baby and resting. And it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that is what the mom's body needs in order to not just rest and nurse the baby, but also to develop the lactation and bond with the baby, because so much bonding happens during that time. And even like there's been some times where I've had to spend like a whole afternoon, doing errands or going to the hospital for certain things that I haven't been able to, spend that time with my daughter. And that time is like, I miss her during that time, even though it's only a few hours, and I've spent more or less like every moment with her for the last like 5-6 weeks. But it's never, you never have enough time with them. And, so there's also this thing of us like just trying to balance, like, savoring all the moments together, because she's not going to be an infant, a newborn for very long. And then she's not going to be an infant for too long. And, you start seeing a little bit of that pace of the growth that happens, and it makes you proud as a parent to see your baby doing well and developing and growing, and but there's also like a little bit of sadness that comes along with it, because they're growing. They're not going to stay the same. They're not going to stay this little cuddly infant forever. But that's okay. We're going to go through those new things as parents together. And and I've had a wonderful partner to do that with, and I'm really thankful. And I guess the last thing that I'll talk about for the new parent transition for us and our family is transitioning with a pet in the home. And I know a lot of people out there, especially nowadays, will get have a dog, and then the dog kind of like more or less prepares the couple for having a baby. And it's true to some extent, because dogs are very similar to babies in certain aspects, but they're way more independent than an infant. And but they do sort of give you that training of like making sure that the dog is fed, that the dog is taken care of, that you're giving affection towards the dog, and all those sorts of things, especially when the dog's a puppy, because when they're a puppy, they need to pee every like 2 hours. So you got to make sure that they're, or every like 3 hours or so, you got to make sure that they're able to do that comfortably and reasonably. But in our case, our dog is a little over a year old. She's like a year and a half. And I feel like we have made a lot of great steps towards making sure that she doesn't feel left out, that she's not forgotten because that there's a newborn in the house. So for example, and this is a great tip for a lot of people out there that, have a newborn, or or you're going to have a newborn soon, or you're planning on it, and you have a dog, keep in the back of your mind that it's a great idea for the dad to go home with the baby's receiving blanket or hat, and give the blanket to the dog, and make sure that the dog, can smell and get acclimated to the smell of the baby before the baby comes home. And I think a lot of cases the baby, like the dog, will already know that there's a baby on the way, sort of, because of the pregnancy. And actually, there's one other thing that I want to talk about the pregnancy relating into the birth in a bit, but let's finish this idea about the handling with the dog. And the dog, will sort of understand like, oh yeah, I think things are changing, right? And then the baby comes home and like, oh, this is the thing that I was smelling that was in, my mom's womb, and, or in the stomach. And she's, in this case, our dog is a she. She's like, okay, well, this is the baby. Like, let me go up and smell the baby. And that's a familiar smell. Your instincts as a parent is going to be like, oh, well, I need to protect the baby from the dog. Making sure that the dog and the baby have good interactions, that the dog is able to respect space, but also to the point that, that the dog doesn't feel totally left out or like they're doing something wrong by approaching the baby. So doing that in steps, doing that in a controlled manner, maybe on a leash at first would be better, or while the baby's in the car seat, or while the dog is in the crate, etc. And conditions in which you can control the outcome much better than just both of them being loose. You can get the dog acclimated to being around the baby, getting the scent, and also like, if the wife is like taking care of the baby and nursing or feeding the baby or changing or anything like that, that's a great opportunity to take your dog, hold them, and let them see what's going on. Let them satisfy that curiosity, and let them see like, hey, you're still a value member of the pack. You're not replaced. This is just an addition to the pack. You always have a place in the pack, in the home, and you always will get love from us. Is it going to be the same level when there wasn't an infant here? Probably not, but going out of your way to take the dog to the dog park, continue the walks, continue going to the dog beach. As that's been a priority for us. I won't say that we've always managed to execute it perfectly, but it's a priority. And then we do make sure that that our dog is able to still feel valued and get treats and love and praise and attention, and isn't forgotten during this new and exciting time. And I will say that having family come stay with us during that time helped with that specifically because, she was able to get attention from not just myself and my wife, but also from my mom, and then now from, from in-laws and from my sister and all these people that are coming over to come see her, not Boa, but the baby. And like that has, been really great for her. But then also there's a lot of changes. So having patience with the dog and the changes and all the new things in the home is crucial to making sure that they feel valued and that they're, that their needs are also not being neglected. Okay, yeah. So a little bit I talked about also this. I talked a little bit earlier about this pregnancy idea of that, like the love and the affection that I felt for our daughter, like didn't just like start when she was born, but it did like take off in a new way. But that like throughout the pregnancy, that's when like the bonding really happens, and then it goes to a new level once you see the baby. And I think that's like an important thing for us to recognize, is that the baby is a baby in the womb. It is just, 7 layers of tissue that protects the baby from, the outside world. But during that time in the womb, like they are, they're developing, and, they're getting that sense of like, hey, this is my mom and my dad. This is the smells. This is the, the music that they play. This is the books that they like to read. And for me, and, maybe they don't think of it in those terms, but, what is very clear once you have an infant and you see them as a newborn is just how comfortable and amazing the womb is for them. Because everything on the outside is such a huge adjustment and scary and cold, and now they experience hunger, and now they experience, all the things outside of the womb that they didn't have to experience in the womb, that they were always having their needs met in the womb. They were always fed. They were always cuddled and warm and around their favorite people, the mom and the dad. So that continuation and of that shows, or the disconnect that happens for them once they, oh, and I don't have those things anymore. Now I'm hungry. Now I need to worry about sleeping because, they just sleep in the womb. They have no issues. They're just, they have no issues in there. That's just the perfect environment for them. And everything that reminds them of the womb is comforting to them. And I think that is a beautiful thing to keep in mind, that not only are they a person developing in the womb, but it's a wonderful place for them. And then once they come out, that you're going through different steps to replicate that feeling for them of the security, of the, satisfaction of being able to eat and feel nourished and all those things. And just how amazing the mother's womb is, and how amazing the connection is between the baby and the mom. And of course with the father too, but there's such an amazing special connection with the mother in the baby because of the comfort and the security that they felt in the mother's womb, and the development of life that happens through, it doesn't even just like end there, that the mother is still like breastfeeding and nourishing the baby even after that, all up to a year. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. And so thank you guys for for listening in, and hopefully for those of you that are looking forward to having children, having a family with your wife, your husband, that this was something that you really enjoyed hearing. And then also for you guys out there that already have children, hopefully this was a good nostalgic moment for you to relive those early moments of parenthood through my recapping of what the last 5 weeks or so have been like. I thank you guys so much for listening. I know that we've taken a little bit of a break from posting weekly, but and I know that I said that we were going to do our best to get back on schedule, and I feel like we're pretty much either there or really close to getting there, that we can get back to doing weekly or 2 times a week episodes. But again, we are at the mercy of a of a newborn and her schedule, so we're doing our best, and we thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love all you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to Engaging Walk. If you guys can give us a like, a subscribe, share, comment, all that, it would be really great. And then also give us a rating if you're on Spotify and if you guys like this episode. All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Drake, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.